Okay, so this happened in the late 60s or very, very early 70s when I was in probably a junior in high school. So this is a very, very simple event and makes a very short story, but it was very informative about the issue of energy, spiritual energy. So the way this happened was my brother, older than me by about a couple of years, he was washing dishes. It was he was like, I guess I was 14 or 15 and he was like 16 or 17. He was the second child, I was the third. That pair in the lineup is not always the best of relationships, not a lot of trust. But at that point, I was fully aware of that. Maybe not completely as I am now, but there was, you be careful with your slightly older antagonistic brother. So he was in the kitchen. It was a very small area in our house, almost like a wide hallway. Down the hallway to his left and behind him was the entry from the living room. I had wandered up to that doorway about 10 feet from him. There is never much light in that doorway. That gave a tactical advantage to me, the one who was at the doorway entry. He was leaning over the sink, scrubbing a pan or something, and from my position, I could not even see the edge of his eyes, nor his reflection in the kitchen window in front of him. That was blocked by the cabinets to his left side towards me. And two, being summer and just after dinner, we didn't have AC at that time. It was still a little laggy outside, if I remember right. The water was running. The refrigerator to my right there, but almost between us, was running. So I highly doubt he could hear my breath, and I was not nervous or hyper in any way, just bored, standing there. My brother, oddly enough, did not have his short on, of course, because of the AC. So I just stood there looking at the odd curvatures typical of a young man's back. In that case, in that kind of a situation with a brother behind you and you're focused on something, quite often someone like my brother might choose to play a trick or even do something mean. I had nothing like that in mind myself, certainly not with my older, bigger and meaner brother. Plus, he had water on hand. It would not go well for me. But my brother would expect such behavior from his brothers, since that was what he himself might have done. But I noticed from my position that a hollow dip at the lower center of the back would be perfect fit for my thumb, if I could put it in there. It was somewhat of a deep spot. He was just a little bit chubby after all. So I closed my finger around my thumb, holding it up in front of myself, and imagined that I could feel to put my thumb in that little curved spot while rubbing my thumb in my hand and looking at that spot, just imagining. Suddenly, he puts his hand to his back right on that spot with a jump, and he looks to his left and back at me and just as quickly yelps, "What did you do?" I was still rubbing my thumb, not very openly, just standing there rubbing it. So I said, I was just wondering what it'd be like to put my thumb right there. He huffed a grunt, turned back to the dishes, and that was the end of that. I suspect he didn't believe me, was not sure, or didn't want to face the idea that I may have caused this at a distance. Maybe, expecting I was tricking him, he didn't want to admit a trick had worked and had got to him. Certainly, he did not get the chance to share the moment in any productive way with me. Frankly, this could have been his secret skill and not mine, or maybe it was mine and his. Certainly, he felt it, and I projected it. So, there's a sender and a receiver. I do also conclude that our world view shapes what we see and what we expect. Did my expectation alone set up the results of this interaction? I didn't expect that he would feel it. His reaction was based on his own mindset and because of his connected perceptions. But it was a memorable, instructive event, at least for me. I think you can deduce from this a system for implementing connectivity. A visceral sense of being there in the moment, doing this, and sensitizing yourself to what that would feel like. So there's feeling involved. I likely had a related incident with the girl that I was dating. We were standing in line for around half an hour at a movie theater. We stopped talking and got bored, and were just looking around to the surrounding area waiting for the line to move. At one point, I started noticing that each place she was looking at, I would turn my gaze towards that spot. It took me a while to figure out that each location she observed became just a little more sharp to me, or stood out in some interesting but subtle way. I could not define how it was really different, other than it just seemed to be a little more vibrant in those moments. From these two events, I came to the conclusion that we all paint energy everywhere we focus on, especially if you're in the moment and it's a feeling, visceral moment. And that we can both feel and see, both her and I, or you and another person, can see that in some unmeasurable but nonetheless a very real way. I call this ESP skill number 1, that we can know when somebody is looking at us, but that situation takes two people, one to paint and one to feel it or see it. In a very similar way, I had an adventure when I was in the Air Force. I went to a place in Tucson called the Great Red Barn, which was a dance floor and a bar. I went there with some friends, and we stopped in for a little bit. And, of course, standing around in there, I got a feel for the place, what it was like to be there in that environment. And didn't think about it much. It just had a feel to it. But for some reason, the next day in the mid-morning, I had to go back to that place, so I went back there and went inside, and it had a completely different feel, like it was a completely different place. And of course, the only difference there, other than the light setting, is the people that were there. And the only thing I can conclude about that is that, the mood that was painted inside the place was perceptual to me. I could feel the difference. And having felt the difference, gave me a better feel for feeling energy, feeling the mood of a place. I suspect that police are very aware that when they get to a crime scene, those scenes have a particular feel to them. And, one or two, investigative officers may well have that sensitivity that they've learned for themselves, where they can tell the feel of a place that's had different types of events happen there. Anyway, very instructive, short story. It could happen to you, and maybe you would learn something from it. So, like many of my stories, I want just to give you a a sense of how to have this same kind of perception happen for you.